Familiarity, they say, breeds contempt, but we don't agree with that. Oh no. If you've related with your other half for a while, you know what makes them happy, you know what triggers them. So familiarity should breed intimacy. Some of the common complaints couples put forward are some of the things we'll be highlighting today. Okay, these are some things that can ruin connection or the friendship in your relationship. Thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you. I am Chidi Akunna.
And I am Victor Akunna.
Thank you to all our returning subscribers. And if you're new to our channel, Foundation for Family Affairs, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it so you're notified when we drop our content. At Foundation for Family Affairs, our mission is to connect hearts and raise healthy families. Thank you for joining us again. So today we'll be talking about 5 things, we'll cap it as 5. 5 things that can ruin connection or friendship in your relationship. Friendship is crucial. Do you want to talk about that first?
Friendship is so crucial. I agree with you because it's formed sometimes like a lubricant for relationship.
Oh yes.
We always recommend people marry their friends. You know, build some form of connection, build some form of friendship. What is friendship? Someone who shares common values with you, someone who has your back. Someone who will be there when everybody is not there. Someone who will be there. Someone who acts in your best interest.
Oh yes.
Having that kind of relationship. But sometimes people develop that relationship at the beginning, but as they go on, they begin to take each other for granted. They begin to do some things that make withdrawals from the emotional bank account, from that positive feeling that you have towards each other. So what are these things? And those are some of the things we want to talk about today, actually.
Oh yes. Okay, so let's take the first point then. Selfish behavior. What would class as selfish behavior?
It's when you forget that you are in a partnership and you begin to prioritize your own interests, your own needs, and your own pain beyond that of your spouse. So you're focusing on, I'm so tired, and your spouse is trying to get your attention and I'm really exhausted. You're like, I'm sure I'm exhausted. That's not what she wants to hear then. She wants you to affirm. She wants you to stop what you're doing. She wants you to listen.
Just
validate how she's feeling. So that's a very, very good point. That's one key thing people can be selfish about. Sometimes people prioritize their own needs. So let's say as a couple, you have just one car. And then you're just focusing on, probably where you go to work is not so far, but your wife or your husband goes really, really far away. But because you want to maintain a certain image, and so you only prioritize your own needs at the expense of your spouse continuously. So if this happens perennially every time, your spouse comes to make that conclusion that this person is selfish. And when people make that conclusion, they begin to protect themselves. Which means 2 selfish people will not be in the relationship.
A marriage doesn't work well.
Marriage doesn't work
selfishness.
well. Absolutely.
Oh, no. Okay, so we'll just be hurting ourselves at the end of the day. All right, so the other point we have for you today is avoiding conversation during conflict. I think we were talking about this with a couple we were coaching in the course of the week, and we were saying the fact that an issue comes up, okay, and now we have an issue regarding A. A is the problem, okay? It doesn't mean we shut down conversation in our relationship entirely. Okay, so because we've not sorted A out, then we don't talk about anything else.
Yes.
The house will be cold because A must be sorted. Now, that's not us encouraging you to let issues linger. No, okay? Because we would always put forward that you can call time out. Okay, if an issue is trying to rock the atmosphere in the home, the peaceful state in the home, you can call time out. But yes, if you call time out, ensure that you call time in, so that issue is addressed. But while you're trying to cool off on that issue, you don't shut down communication. You don't you don't begin to see your spouse as an enemy at that point. Someone I cannot speak to until this issue is resolved. Because that's why an issue occurs and there is something you need to talk about, to move your lives forward. And you don't talk about it because we've not addressed this issue.
No, that would be like You know, like that would be like grinding your whole relationship to a halt because of one minor issue. Relationship is broad. Relationship is multifaceted. So don't allow one thing that is happening in your finance, maybe because you're not agreed on your finance now, it's impacting on the sex. Now it's impacting on the parenting. Now it's impacting on you know, the plan you have probably to do a major project. And so because of that one thing, you're allowing it to affect every aspect of your relationship. No. That's why I like what she said. If you've called it a time out, you know what, I can't talk about this now. I'll, give me some time. You have to be the one that will call time in. Yes. You have the one to say, you know what, I'm sorry about the other time.
I'm comfortable, but you gotta do it.
You've got to do it. You have to say, now I'm ready to have a conversation around this. Another thing that's having conversations, sometimes people don't have conversation and then they begin to do what we call silent treatment or stonewalling. Those kind of attitude or those kind of actions, they make they prolong the pain. And at the end of the day, what often happens to couples is that they get to that point where they can't even remember what they are quarreling about. Yes. The emotions are there, but they don't remember what led them to that point. So the danger of that is this. After a long period of time, people will have pent up emotions that have not been released, not been channeled, because that's what conversation does for you. Yes. When you are able to really air how you feel, especially in an emotionally safe environment, where you can tell your spouse that, I don't like this thing that you do. I don't like this thing that you do. I don't like the way you talk this way. I don't like how you react when someone comes in. I don't like how you make me feel in the presence of your friends. Your spouse is saying something to you, so that you can deal with that issue. So without conversations, you won't know what your spouse is feeling bad about. All you have to do is to make assumptions. And when people make assumptions, they most times get it wrong.
Awesome. And this is why we push for emotional growth. Okay. And the way I say it is, what rights do I have to tell our children to grow up, to be able to regulate their emotions if I'm not doing that as an adult? Okay, so you can't be dumping emotions on your spouse. You've got to learn to process your emotions, articulate what you're feeling, and stretch emotionally. Okay, so another point to have for you is harsh criticism. Oh yes, we didn't just say criticism, because criticism in itself may not be right if it's not constructive. Okay, but then how about harsh criticism? That's really, really tough. Okay, it's I mean, people oftentimes don't do well with criticism. It's like a hard pill to swallow sometimes, because okay, especially when you feel bad you did that thing, or you've not done it right, if that's what's been criticized. But then when it's harsh, it's like it comes with so much pain as well.
Yeah. So what harsh criticism? When you hear like you never. You are always blaming me. You never get it right. You don't care about anybody in this. Absolute comments. Yes. Absolute comment. I mean, we are human, so sometimes you might fall into that trap of making absolute comment because you just not that you meant it, but because you want to get your spouse's attention. Or you want to express the intensity of the emotion.
Exactly, the way you're feeling.
The way you're feeling. So, having said that, but the flip side of it is this: it can make someone defensive because the moment you say to someone, "You never do one thing," the person wants to begin to dig into their memory to begin to say, "But this is not true." But I've done this, I've done X, Y, Z, I've done, So it's not good to put your spouse in that place where they have to defend themselves, like they're in a law court. All right. So it's very important for you to ensure that even when you're giving criticism, it's best to give criticism when your emotions are in a better place, to be honest. When you are thinking with your emotion, and no harm intended, when you are thinking with your emotion, you are more likely to do harm to your spouse's self-esteem. You're more likely to do harm to your spouse's view of themselves. So sometimes some people will say it's better you write it down, because in the place of writing it down, that emotion leaves you. There's a book I read a while ago by Dale Carnegie. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he talked about how to give feedback, constructive feedback. In other words, when you say something that is not so nice, listen to something that is nice. Or no, if you want to say something that is not nice, listen to something good that the person is doing. Then say what you want to say that is not so nice, and then listen to something that they are doing that is good. So for example, I want to tell someone off, I want to tell off my son, I can say, I really like how you tidied up your room, but I would have preferred it if you did where it wasn't waking other people up. But thank you for thinking about putting things in the right place. I really appreciate you taking responsibility for your toys. That's a very good way to say it. All right, so this is a practice. It's easier said than done. So it's something that you have to practice to be like, otherwise you just find yourself in that default mode of latching out. You know, if that's your default mode, you need to work harder at correcting that default mode.
Okay. All right. So another point to have for you is undermining the other. Undermining the other. I mean, when you do that through words or even actions, what you're simply saying to your spouse is you're undeserving. You're not worthy. Okay, because sometimes we do this. Some people may say, "Oh no, I can never do that to my spouse." But you may be doing it with your time. Your spouse may be craving more time, and you're giving other things more time than required, or more time that you should be allocating to your spouse. Okay, at that point, that's you saying to your spouse that you're not deserving of my time, of my attention. But putting this forward so you can look in, are there ways I undermine my spouse? Okay, because you may not be guilty of undermining your spouse expressly, but are your inactions undermining your spouse?
Sometimes, I've heard couples say this to me. In fact, so people talked to me about this yesterday. Where you have your spouse asking for your opinion on something, and then you give your opinion, and your spouse is like, yeah, well, that's not, I don't really agree with that, this, and then they go to consult somebody else, and the person gives exact same points, exact same feedback, and they're like, wow, this is really sound. This is what I'm going to do. That is a slap on your spouse's face. That's a classic way of undermining your spouse. Where someone, because you've seen them all, you've seen the best and the worst of them, but you've come to that point where subconsciously you think that their ideas are not good enough. You think that they are not smart enough. You think that they don't know the right thing to do. So any suggestion they make, you kind of, you take it with a pinch of salt. And then, but if somebody else, maybe your sister, your brother, or your mentor said something, you're like, wow, this is exact same thing your spouse said. Whether it's a man or a woman, this is one of the ways of undermining your spouse,
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What if that person has chosen to act like that because in the past that spouse gave maybe wrong suggestion or something that the other tried and it failed? What would you say?
That's a very good question. So if this is a one-off thing, that's not a problem. So it's like in the multitude of counsel, the more people you consult on something, sometimes it gives you broader perspective, different version, so that you now make informed decision, the better information you have. But if this is a classic habit in your relationship, it's not a function of seeking more wisdom. Sometimes it's a function of undermining your spouse because you don't value the voice of the person in your life.
Okay, no, what I'm trying to say is, husband sought wisdom from wife, wife advised, but it didn't turn out well. And now husband thinks, oh, no, I'm concerned about, taking advice from her because she may give me wrong suggestion and things would get out of hand.
The husband has a brain, so you can also process and filter what you're saying. Yeah, because that's the truth. Because if you make one mistake and then based on that, I'll say, because you said one thing that is off, means that everything you say for the rest of your time with me on this earth will be wrong. No, that's a fallacy. People even organizations get it wrong. Does that mean that they stop trying? MDs get it wrong. People get it wrong on teams. But it doesn't mean that next time you got it wrong on this project, doesn't mean you get it wrong on all projects. You got it wrong on finance, doesn't mean you get it wrong on parenting, the school to take your child to. And you also have a filter to be able to also check what your spouse is saying to you. It's not everything is just said to you, just run. You have to also critique and have a critical perspective of it. Okay, what about this? You see, when you're asking me a question now to clarify what I meant, so be able to ask and have a debate. So otherwise, you find your spouse getting to that point where they just feel like, you know what's the point?
Yeah, the stop even suggested. Yes.
So once a spouse gets to that point where they say, what's the point? What's the point? What's the point? The spouse has entered their shell. So every point, if I'm doing that to you, for example, every idea based on your training, based on your experience, based on your perspective that you are bringing to that conversation, I'm losing it. So I'm half as good I'm supposed to have been. So I don't think that's a good way of looking at it coming from an HR perspective.
Yeah.
You want to have the best people on your team that will make the best contribution. You know, whether it's your idea or somebody else's idea, whatever idea is the best for everyone on the team, for every stakeholder, that's where you go, that's where you execute.
So there's something the other has to contribute.
Absolutely.
I love it when you said, I'll be half as good.
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay, so let's take the last point, emotional disengagement. Okay, this is where I think we can even tie it to something you said from the last point. When you were saying the other spouse will just resign. What's the point even trying? So the person will be emotionally disconnected. Even when the person sees that I can help, I can step in here, but because there's no connection anymore, what's the point?
What's the point? So disengagement is that point, that place of apathy, where you are just like, you know what, whatever you want. Did you want white? Yes. Would you want black? Yes. Don't want anyone? Yes. What do you think we should do? Where do you think we should go on holiday? Is anywhere you go is fine. No, you don't want someone that will resolve, your spouse has got you to that point where they don't really care. They don't give a hoot. They don't care about, they're not making an emotional investment in this because they are feeling that it's not worth their time. It's not worth their energy. And so you don't want to get to that point. So that's these are one of the things that if you are the one who just got to that point where maybe now there are different reasons why people do that. Sometimes I might be comparing you to some other people in my life, maybe my mom, my sister, or some other friends, or some other people that I know, and then I just get to that point where, because I'm comparing your weakness to somebody else's strength, instead of focusing on your strength and seeing how I can help you even be a better version of yourself, but I'm comparing your weakness to someone else's strength. I can get to that point where I just become, I think I made the wrong call, and I just withdraw, and that will impact on our own relationship.
Sure.
Because now I'm viewing you through the lens of your weakness. And the rule of life is whatever you focus on will expand.
Yes.
If you keep focusing on your spouse's weaknesses, that's the only thing you think about anytime you see her, anytime you see him. That will be your only experience. That will limit the experience. You won't see the full package of the benefits of the investments that is in the person sitting right beside you. So it's very important for us not to get to that point. So that's one of the reasons why some people just withdraw and be like, you know what, I made it right. You will never have a perfect person.
Yeah.
No, you will never have a perfect person. I know you've heard this many times, but it's true. You never have a perfect person.
You're not perfect either.
You will never be perfect.
Yes.
You can be excellent, but you will not be perfect. Excellent means you are constantly improving. Yes. Your spouse is constantly making progress. What Japanese people will call kaizen. Continuous improvement. That's what we all must be doing until we are out of here.
Yes. It's been a pleasure doing this. You may have some points you think, it would have been nice if they considered this. So we'll be happy to read from you if you put it in the comment section. If you yet to subscribe to our channel, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it, so you're notified when we drop our content. If you think you have some topics you want us to address, hey, we'll be happy to do that, okay? You may want to leave it in the comment section.
Yes.
Or you may want to contact us at info@foundationforfamilyaffairs.org. Feel free to drop your comments, your questions, and we will be happy to deal with them. Okay, so until we come your way again, it's goodbye from us.